My name is Evelyn Thomas. At 33, I thought I had my life figured out. Marketing manager at Meridian Investments in Denver, a comfortable apartment downtown, and what I foolishly believed was a supportive family. I always played by the rules, worked twice as hard as everyone else, and still somehow ended up as the family's afterthought. That's the problem with being the reliable one. People take you for granted until they need something. I remember standing in the rain outside Meridian's glass-fronted building, watching as my younger sister Ashley strutted out the front entrance with a triumphant smile. Even through the downpour, I could see the gleam in her eyes as she clutched the job offer letter, my job offer letter, the position I'd spent 5 years working toward. "Sorry about that, sis," she said, not looking sorry at all as she passed me. But they needed someone with a fresh perspective, someone who isn't, she paused dramatically, unstable. The word hung between us in the damp air, unstable, the same word my parents had used when they called my boss and told him I was mentally unfit to handle the promotion. Also, golden child Ashley could swoop in and claim what was rightfully mine. That was the moment I knew, family or not, I wouldn't let them get away with this. What they didn't realize was that the quiet, accommodating Evelyn they thought they knew had been playing a much longer game. Growing up as the eldest daughter in the Thomas family meant I was expected to be the responsible one. While Ashley got dance lessons and cheerleading camps, I babysat the neighbors' kids to save for college. When she crashed Dad's car and tearfully apologized, they bought her a new one. When I asked for help with tuition, Mom suggested I work a little harder for scholarships. "Evelyn, you need to understand," my mother would say with that patronizing smile. "Ashley has such potential. She just needs a little extra support to shine." Meanwhile, I worked my way through college, graduated with honors, and landed an entry-level position at Meridian Investments. For 5 years, I put in 60-hour weeks, skipped holidays, and built a reputation as the most reliable person in the marketing department. When the senior marketing manager position opened up, everyone, including my boss, Jeffrey Wilson, told me it was practically mine. What I didn't know was that Ashley had set her sights on corporate life after her influencer career stalled at 50,000 followers. Her business degree had gathered dust while she tried to become famous for, well, being Ashley, and now she wanted my job. "Evelyn's always been the jealous type," my mother told Jeffrey over dinner at the Willowbrook estate, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "We've been so worried about her stability lately. The mood swings, the obsessive behavior. Robert and I think she might need professional help before taking on more responsibility." I sat frozen, fork suspended midway to my mouth, as my father nodded solemnly. "She hides it well at work," he added gravely, "but at home, it's becoming concerning." Jeffrey looked uncomfortable but intrigued. My sister's sympathetic expression couldn't hide the victory in her eyes. "I'd be willing to step in," Ashley offered magnanimously. "Family first. After all, I couldn't bear to see Evelyn struggle with something beyond her capabilities." That dinner was 3 weeks ago, today. Ashley walked out with my promotion, my $35,000 raise, and my future at Meridian. What they didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I had been building something of my own all along. For the past 2 years, I'd been running marketing solutions on evenings and weekends. What started as freelance consulting for small businesses had grown into a boutique agency with 3 employees and revenue approaching $750,000 annually. I kept it quiet, partly because Meridian had a non-compete clause, though mine narrowly avoided violation by focusing on sectors Meridian didn't touch, and partly because I'd learned long ago not to share my successes with my family. I'd also made some shrewd investments. A tip from a grateful client led me to put substantial savings into Cascade Technologies before their breakthrough product announcement. That $50,000 investment was now worth over $1.5 million. I'd used some of those profits to buy silent partnership stakes in 2 up-and-coming Denver restaurants. And then there was the marketing automation tool I developed and patented last year. The royalties were modest but growing steadily each quarter. I kept all of this hidden, living in my modest apartment, driving my practical Toyota Corolla. Dressing nicely but not extravagantly, I learned early that in my family, success just made you a target. As I drove home from Meridian that rainy afternoon, instead of crying, I found myself laughing. They thought they'd taken everything from me, but they had no idea who they were dealing with. The dutiful daughter was about to show her true colors. My apartment felt different that night. Not a refuge, but a war room. I opened my laptop and began to compile evidence of what my family had done. There were the text messages between my mother and sister, plotting how to approach Jeffrey, the anonymous email my mother had sent to HR in January, suggesting I was emotionally fragile, the $12,000 I'd loaned Ashley for her failed online boutique last year, money I knew I'd never see again but had documented meticulously anyway. I had recordings too. Colorado is a one-party consent state for recording conversations, and after years of gaslighting, I never said that, Evelyn. You're too sensitive. That's not how it happened. I'd started recording family gatherings, just for my own sanity at first, but now those recordings would serve a different purpose. The next morning, I called in sick to Meridian. Then I called my cousin Emma, the only family member I still trusted. As a family law attorney, she'd witnessed enough of our dynamic to know something was off, though even she didn't know the full extent. They did what? Emma's voice rose in disbelief as I explained what happened at the dinner and afterward. Called my boss and told him I was mentally unstable, I repeated, surprised at how calm I sounded. Made up stories about me having episodes at home, said I was jealous and obsessive, then suggested Ashley for the position. That's workplace defamation. Evelyn, that's actionable. I know, I said. That's why I'm calling. I need a referral to the best employment attorney in Denver, and I need discretion. 2 days later, I sat across from Patricia Whitfield of Whitfield Legal Group, laying out my evidence. She reviewed the texts, emails, and recordings with a growing look of shock and then determination. Ms. Thomas, this is one of the clearest cases of defamation and tortious interference I've seen in my career, she said finally. Your parents and sister deliberately made false statements about your mental health with the specific intent to damage your professional reputation and cause you to lose a promotion. We have documentary evidence of both the falsehoods and their intent. What can we do? I asked. We have several options, Patricia explained. We could file suit immediately against your family members and potentially Meridian for failing to verify these claims before acting on them. Or, I prompted when she paused. Or we could wait, build our case further, see what else they do now that they think they've won. Sometimes giving people enough rope is the most effective strategy. I considered this. Ashley's engagement party is in 3 weeks. Everyone will be there. Family, friends, colleagues from Meridian, including Jeffrey. Patricia's smile was wolfish. That could be an optimal setting for a reckoning. If you're prepared for the fallout, family events do have a way of bringing out people's true colors. I nodded slowly. I've been preparing for the fallout my entire life. The next 3 weeks were a carefully choreographed dance. At work, I was the model of professionalism, congratulating Ashley on her new role, offering to help with the transition. Her surprise at my gracious acceptance quickly gave way to smugness. She began making small changes to my carefully crafted marketing plans, taking credit for my past successes, and making sure everyone knew she was Jeffrey's new favorite. Meanwhile, I met with my small team at ET, Marketing Solutions, and laid out an accelerated growth plan. We'd been selective with clients until now, but it was time to expand. I reached out to contacts I'd cultivated over years, people who respected my work rather than my family name. I also met with my financial advisor to restructure my investments. If things went as planned, I might need liquid assets soon, either for legal battles or for a fresh start elsewhere. The night before Ashley's engagement party, I sat alone in my apartment reviewing the presentation I'd prepared, slides showing the text messages, audio clips of my parents' lies, bank statements proving the loans that were never repaid, documentation of Ashley's pattern of taking credit for my work, dating back to high school. Was I really going to do this? Expose my family's betrayal in front of everyone they cared about? Destroy the careful facade they'd built? My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "Don't forget Ashley's party tomorrow. Wear something slimming. The photographer will be taking family pictures." And just like that, any doubt vanished. This wasn't about revenge. It was about justice. And finally standing up for myself. The Crystal Ballroom at the Fairmont Hotel in Chicago was exquisite, dripping with chandeliers and floral arrangements in Ashley's preferred blush and gold color scheme. My parents had spared no expense for their favorite daughter's engagement celebration. I arrived deliberately late, after most guests were already mingling with champagne flutes in hand. I'd chosen my outfit carefully, a custom-tailored midnight blue dress that projected confidence and success, different from my usual practical workwear, but not flashy enough to suggest I was trying to upstage the bride-to-be. My portfolio briefcase matched the dress perfectly, containing everything I needed for what would come next. "Evelyn, you made it," my mother called out with artificial warmth when she spotted me. Linda Thomas, at 58, still maintained the beauty queen looks of her youth through rigorous maintenance and whatever cosmetic procedures she could afford. We were beginning to worry. "I wouldn't miss it," I replied smoothly, accepting her air kiss. "Where's the happy couple?" "Over by the gift table. Chad's parents just arrived from Boston." She lowered her voice. "Such old money. Evelyn, this union will open so many doors for Ashley." "I'm sure it will," I said, spotting my sister holding court in a circle of admirers. Her fiancé Chad dutifully at her side, Chad Prescott, investment banker and old money heir, was exactly the kind of trophy Ashley had always wanted. Handsome, wealthy, and just malleable enough to bend to her will. "You know," my mother continued, eyeing my dress with faint surprise, "you look almost sophisticated tonight. Did you finally take my advice about a proper stylist?" "Something like that," I murmured, scanning the room. Jeffrey was there with his wife, looking uncomfortable as my father cornered him by the bar. Perfect. "Excuse me," I said, moving away before she could respond. "I need to say hello to the bride-to-be." Ashley's face flickered with momentary annoyance when she saw me approaching, quickly masked with a bright smile. "Sis, you made it. Don't you just love what we did with the space? The flowers alone cost more than your car." "It's beautiful," I agreed, nodding to Chad. "Congratulations again." "Thanks," he replied, clearly having no idea about the family dynamics at play. "Ashley says you work together now? That must be fun." "Oh, it's been revealing," I said with a smile that made my sister shift uncomfortably. "Chad, darling, I think your mother is looking for you," Ashley interrupted, practically shoving him in the other direction. Once he was out of earshot, her smile vanished. "What are you playing at, Evelyn? You've been weirdly nice about everything. It's creepy." "Can't I be happy for my little sister?" I asked innocently. "Cut the crap. You should be furious. We took your promotion, your bonus, and probably your entire future at Meridian, yet you're walking around like it doesn't matter." I shrugged. "Maybe it doesn't." Her eyes narrowed suspiciously. "What does that mean?" "I guess you'll find out," I said, patting my briefcase. "By the way, I've prepared a special presentation for tonight, a surprise for you and Mom and Dad." Ashley's confident facade cracked slightly. "What? No, this is my engagement party. I don't want any of your weird little speeches." "Don't worry," I assured her. "Everyone will be talking about it for a long time." I walked away before she could protest further. Making my way toward the small stage where a jazz quartet was setting up for the evening's entertainment, the event coordinator, a brisk woman with a clipboard and headset, intercepted me. "Excuse me, the family speeches aren't scheduled until after dinner," she informed me. I gave her my most winning smile. "I know, but I have a special video presentation for my sister, a surprise. I need to make sure the projector and sound system are compatible with my files." She hesitated, then nodded. "Of course, we have everything set up for Mr. Thomas's slideshow of the couple. I can help you test your equipment during the next break." Perfect, I said, handing her a thumb drive. This has everything. I'd appreciate if you kept it a surprise. Though, my sister thinks I'm just giving a standard toast. The coordinator smiled conspiratorially. My lips are sealed. Family surprises are the best part of these events. If only she knew. Dinner was a lavish 5-course affair. I sat at the family table, watching as my parents basked in the compliments about Ashley and the party. My father, Robert, kept one hand possessively on my mother's shoulder as he regaled the table with stories of Ashley's childhood achievements, conveniently omitting any mention of his elder daughter. And then in her senior year, he was saying, Ashley was not only homecoming queen but also valedictorian. We always knew she was destined for greatness. I took a sip of wine to hide my smile. Ashley had been homecoming princess, not queen, and had graduated 7th in her class. Respectable, but hardly valedictorian. The fact that I had actually been valedictorian seemed to have slipped his mind entirely. What about you, Evelyn? Chad's mother asked politely. Were you academically inclined as well? Before I could answer, my mother jumped in. Evelyn was always more practical. She's found her level at Meridian. Haven't you, dear? Not everyone can be exceptional like Ashley. Actually, I said calmly, I graduated as valedictorian and summa cum laude from Northwestern. An awkward silence fell over the table. My father cleared his throat. Well, that was a long time ago. Ashley is the one making waves in the business world now. Yes, I agreed pleasantly. She certainly knows how to make an impression. Ashley shot me a warning look, which I pretended not to notice. The rest of dinner passed in a blur of forced pleasantries and champagne toasts. Finally, the event coordinator approached the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention, please. We'll now hear from the father of the bride-to-be, followed by a special presentation from the sister of the bride, Evelyn Thomas. My father gave his predictably effusive speech about Ashley and Chad's bright future, the merging of two exceptional families, and his pride in his extraordinary daughter. When he finished to applause, the coordinator gestured for me to take the stage. I felt strangely calm as I walked up, briefcase in hand. The eyes of everyone in the room were on me. Family members, Ashley's friends, Chad's family, colleagues from Meridian. Jeffrey Wilson sat near the back, looking interested despite himself. Good evening, everyone, I began, my voice steady. For those who don't know me, I'm Evelyn Thomas, Ashley's older sister. I set my briefcase on the small table beside the podium and opened it deliberately. Family is an interesting concept, isn't it? We're born into these relationships, told they're the most important connections we'll ever have. That family will always support you, always have your back. I paused, looking directly at my parents. But what happens when that isn't true? What happens when the people who should protect you are the ones causing harm? Murmurs rippled through the audience. My mother's smile had frozen on her face, while my father was making a slashing motion across his throat, signaling me to stop. I continued as if I hadn't noticed. I've prepared a special presentation tonight, not the usual embarrassing childhood photos or sentimental memories. Instead, I'd like to share some recent family history that might help everyone understand the Thomas family dynamic a bit better. I nodded to the coordinator, who looked confused, but pressed play on the projection system. The first slide appeared on the large screen behind me, a series of text messages between my mother and sister, discussing how to convince Jeffrey that I was mentally unstable. Mom. Jeffrey seemed concerned when I mentioned E's episodes. Keep pushing that angle. Ashley. Already on it. Told him she's been jealous of me since childhood, playing the concerned sister. Mom. Perfect. He needs to believe she's unfit for the promotion. Your father will back us up at dinner. Gasps echoed through the ballroom. Ashley jumped to her feet, her face flushed with anger and embarrassment. That's private, she shouted, and obviously fake. Is it? I asked calmly. Advancing to the next slide, an email from my mother to Meridian's HR department, carefully anonymized but traceable to her home IP address. I feel compelled to write out of concern for an employee in your marketing department. Evelyn Thomas has been exhibiting concerning behavior outside of work, emotional instability, obsessive tendencies, and increasingly erratic decision-making. As someone who cares about both her and the company's well-being, I felt it necessary to bring this to your attention. This was sent in January, I explained to the stunned audience. 6 months before the senior marketing position opened up, they were laying groundwork even then. My father had stood up now, his face mottled with rage. "Evelyn, stop this immediately. This is your sister's engagement party." "Yes, it is," I agreed. "And I'm giving her exactly the gift she deserves, the truth." I clicked to the next slide, which showed bank transfers, the $12,000 loan to Ashley that had never been repaid, despite her repeated promises. "And this isn't just about work," I continued. "It's about a pattern of behavior spanning decades, taking what's mine, lying about me, using me and discarding me when convenient." The room had gone completely silent. Even the catering staff had stopped to watch the drama unfold. "But the real highlight," I said, clicking to the next slide, "is the audio from our family dinner at the Willowbrook estate 3 weeks ago, the night my parents told my boss I was mentally unfit for a promotion, so that Ashley could take my place." I pressed play, and my parents' voices filled the ballroom, crystal clear as they systematically destroyed my professional reputation with calculated lies. When it finished, I looked out at the sea of shocked faces. That dinner cost me a promotion I'd worked 5 years to earn. It cost me a $35,000 raise. It nearly cost me my entire career. I closed my briefcase with a decisive click. So tonight isn't just a celebration of Ashley's engagement, it's also the announcement of my $500,000 defamation lawsuit against Linda, Robert, and Ashley Thomas. The silence shattered as everyone began talking at once. Ashley was screaming something incoherent at me, her mascara running down her face. Chad stood frozen, staring at his fiancée as if seeing her for the first time. My mother had collapsed back into her chair, while my father stormed toward the stage. "You ungrateful little—" he began, but was interrupted by Jeffrey Wilson, who had stepped into his path. "I think you've done enough, Robert," my former boss said coldly. "I trusted you. I made personnel decisions based on what you told me about your own daughter." My father faltered. "Now, Jeffrey, this is a family matter." "That you made a company matter," Jeffrey cut him off. "Meridian will be conducting a full investigation into this situation." I stepped down from the stage into the chaos I'd created. My cousin Emma appeared at my side, her expression grim but supportive. "The attorney is outside," she murmured, "ready to serve the papers whenever you give the word." I nodded, watching as Ashley's perfect engagement party disintegrated around her. Chad's parents were having an intense conversation with their son, occasionally shooting horrified glances toward Ashley. Guests were awkwardly gathering their belongings, eager to escape the family drama. My mother sat alone, her carefully applied makeup streaked with tears. For a moment, I felt a twinge of regret, not for what I'd done, they'd earned every bit of this reckoning, but for what could have been if they'd simply loved me as I deserved. Ashley pushed through the crowd toward me, her face contorted with fury. "You've ruined everything," she screamed. "My engagement, my job, all because you couldn't stand to see me happy." "No, Ashley," I replied quietly. "This isn't about your happiness. It's about your actions. And Mom's, and Dad's. Actions have consequences." "We're your family," she hissed, as if that explained and excused everything. "Not anymore," I said simply, and walked away. Outside the hotel, the night air was cool against my flushed skin. Patricia Whitfield waited beside a sleek black car, legal documents in hand. "Are you ready to proceed?" she asked as I approached. I took a deep breath and nodded. "Yes, serve the papers." As Patricia's associate headed into the hotel with the lawsuit documents, I leaned against the car and looked up at the stars. For the first time in years, maybe ever, I felt unburdened, free. My phone buzzed with a text from Jeffrey. "We need to talk. Monday, 9 a.m. Your position may still be available." I smiled faintly but didn't respond. Meridian was part of my past now. E.T. Marketing Solutions was my future, my company, built on my terms. Another text came through, this one from my father. You will regret this. Family is all you have. I deleted it without responding. He was wrong. Family wasn't all I had. I had myself. I had my work. I had the truth. And soon, I would have justice. The legal proceedings moved swiftly once the lawsuit was filed. My parents and Ashley received formal cease and desist orders, prohibiting them from making any further statements about my mental health or professional capabilities. Meridian, eager to avoid a separate lawsuit and potential PR disaster, rescinded Ashley's promotion and placed her on administrative leave pending an investigation. My mother and father, facing both legal fees and public humiliation, began to turn on each other. The united front they'd always presented cracked under pressure, revealing the self-interest at the core of their relationship. Within a month, my father had moved out of their suburban home and into a downtown apartment. Ashley's engagement didn't survive either. Once Chad's family understood the full situation and realized the potential liability of associating with someone involved in a defamation lawsuit, they counseled their son to reconsider the timing. The 3-carat diamond ring disappeared from Ashley's finger, though she still occasionally posted about wedding planning on social media, unwilling to admit the engagement had ended. As for me, I submitted my resignation to Meridian, despite Jeffrey's attempts to make amends. Marketing Solutions was growing faster than I'd anticipated, fueled partly by publicity from the lawsuit and partly by the network of clients who had always respected my work. I leased proper office space in downtown Denver and hired 3 more employees. My parents attempted reconciliation several times, tearful phone calls from my mother, stern emails from my father suggesting I was tearing the family apart. I blocked their numbers after the 3rd call, referring all communication to Patricia. The case never went to trial. 3 months after the engagement party, my parents and Ashley agreed to a settlement, a substantial financial compensation plus public written apologies acknowledging their false statements. The money meant little to me compared to that admission of guilt. One afternoon in late September, as I was leaving a business lunch at one of the restaurants I'd invested in, I ran into my cousin Emma. "I was hoping to see you," she said, giving me a quick hug. "I've been thinking about you since the settlement." We found a quiet table in the corner, and she studied me thoughtfully. "You look different," she finally said. "Lighter somehow." I smiled. "I feel different. For the first time, I'm living completely on my terms. No more dimming my light to make Ashley shine brighter. No more pretending to be less to make my parents comfortable." "Are you lonely?" Emma asked bluntly. "Without the family connection. I considered the question seriously. Sometimes," I admitted. "Not because I miss them specifically, but because I miss the idea of what family should be. But I'm building new connections, real ones based on mutual respect." Emma nodded. "I've distanced myself too. After seeing what they did to you, I couldn't look at Aunt Linda and Uncle Robert the same way." "I'm sorry if this caused problems for you," I said, but she waved away my concern. "Don't be. It opened my eyes. Actually, that's partly why I wanted to talk to you. I'm thinking of leaving my firm and starting my own practice focusing on workplace harassment and defamation cases. After seeing what you went through, I think there's real need there." "You'd be amazing at that," I told her sincerely. "I was hoping," she said hesitantly, "that you might consider being my first client, not for legal services. You've got Patricia for that. But for marketing. Help me build a brand that speaks to people who've been wronged the way you were." It was the first time anyone in my family had approached me professionally, as an equal with valuable skills, rather than the reliable one to be exploited. The symmetry felt right. Both of us building something new from the ashes of old family dynamics. "I'd be honored," I said, extending my hand to shake on it. As fall turned to winter, my company continued to thrive. I bought a new condo with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Denver skyline. No more modest apartment, no more hiding my success. I still drove my Toyota, though. a reminder of where I'd come from and how far I'd traveled. Occasionally, news of my family filtered through to me despite my efforts to maintain distance. My parents had sold their house, each claiming they couldn't afford the mortgage payments alone with the settlement and legal fees draining their savings. Ashley had been let go from Meridian and was struggling to find comparable work with the defamation case following her. Her Instagram follower count had plummeted once the story broke. Her carefully cultivated image of perfect family life shattered beyond repair. I felt no satisfaction in their struggles, but no pity either. They had made their choices repeatedly over decades. The consequences were entirely of their own making. In December, I received an invitation to speak at a marketing conference in Seattle. It was a prestigious opportunity, one that would have delighted me in my Meridian days. Now it was just one of many speaking requests I received regularly. The conference itself was standard industry fare, but during the networking reception afterward, I found myself in conversation with an intriguing man named Michael Forrester. Unlike most of the marketing professionals working the room, Michael had a refreshing directness and seemed genuinely interested in the ethical implications of modern marketing techniques. "Your presentation on authentic brand storytelling was compelling," he said, eschewing small talk. "Especially your point about how companies that misrepresent themselves internally inevitably project those same false narratives externally." "Thank you," I replied, surprised by his insight. Most people focus on the technical aspects rather than the philosophical underpinnings. "I'm not most people," he said with a smile that creased the corners of his eyes. In venture capital, I found that a company's internal culture is the most reliable predictor of long-term success. The same principles you outlined apply there too. We talked until the reception ended, then continued over dinner at a small restaurant overlooking Elliott Bay. Michael listened intently as I described marketing solutions' rapid growth and my vision for its future. When I mentioned the family situation that had precipitated my company's expansion, expecting the usual awkward response, he simply nodded thoughtfully. "Betrayal is a powerful catalyst," he observed. "It either destroys you or forces you to become something stronger than you were before. Clearly, you chose the latter." "I didn't feel like I had a choice," I admitted. "It was evolve or be consumed by it." "There's always a choice," Michael said gently. "Many people choose bitterness or victimhood when faced with similar circumstances. You chose resilience and creation. That's remarkable." Something in his tone made me wonder if he spoke from personal experience. "You sound like you've been there." He smiled ruefully. "Different circumstances, similar lessons. Perhaps I'll tell you about it someday." "Someday?" I echoed, raising an eyebrow. "I'm in Denver at least once a month for business," Michael explained. "If you'd be open to continuing this conversation, I'd enjoy that." For the first time in longer than I could remember, I felt a flutter of genuine interest in someone, not for what they could do for me or what they represented, but simply for who they were. It was both terrifying and exhilarating. "I'd like that," I said honestly. On the flight back to Denver the next day, I reflected on how much had changed in 9 months. The woman who had stood in the rain watching her sister steal her future seemed like a stranger now, someone I'd outgrown or shed like an ill-fitting garment. My phone chimed with an email notification. The quarterly royalty statement for my marketing automation patent. The numbers had doubled since the last quarter. Another validation of work I'd done quietly while my family assumed I was merely treading water at Meridian. As the plane descended through clouds toward the familiar Denver skyline, I felt a profound sense of homecoming, not to a place or people, but to myself. The Evelyn who had always existed beneath the surface, patient and observant, building slowly toward this moment of complete self-determination. My parents and sister had thought they were writing my story for me, casting me forever as the reliable but unremarkable daughter, the stepping stone for Ashley's ascent. They never understood that I was authoring my own narrative all along, and that their betrayal would be just one chapter in a much longer, more triumphant tale. The plane touched down with a gentle bump. I was home, in every sense of the word, and this was just the beginning.